What's up, people? You're listening and watching the RAPS Talk podcast presented by HipHoopJunkies.com and HoopHeadsNorth.com. Hoops Talk out of Halifax, playoff edition. My name is Romeo Aquino, and I have with me
Jean-Francois.
And I have, who else?
Huey the Jet Smith. No, I don't know. Just felt like saying that.
So this is a post-game. This is really post-game podcast. I mean, it just finished probably, within the last 20 minutes. 106-99 lost to the Washington Wizards, down 0-3. Definitely, I mean, we've been saying most of these games were must-wins, but this was, I mean, as close as you're going to get to a must-win for the series. To be down 0-3, it's going to be a tough road to climb. But let's talk about the game. Like, what were your? They started out strong in the first quarter. What was kind of your thoughts in the first half, guys?
They started out shooting well. I wouldn't exactly say strong. I found that as the game wore on, their defense got a little better. You know, they started getting their active hands. You started to notice that more as the game wore on, and I'm like, where was that from the beginning? There were still some easy layups where there shouldn't have been. Ball movement at times got a little better here and there as well. They definitely crashed boards harder, but yeah, at the end of the day, it just wasn't enough. Like, the improvements that they needed weren't enough, and then when you shoot horribly, what are you going to do?
Yeah, 35 points in the first quarter, solid. Even though the Wizards scored 33, it was a bit of a shootout there, right? And then to follow that up with a 13-point second quarter, just not the effort that you need to be able to win in the playoffs and on the road at that.
Yeah, I mean it's been their struggles. I mean, all series, just these middle quarters, and I mean, obviously a great first quarter from DeMar. He scored 20 points. I didn't even believe it when I heard it, like 20 points in the first quarter. But then he kind of went cold, kind of throughout the second and third, and yeah, I mean, I don't know, like, I mean, to go from 35 points down to 13 points, I mean. One of the problems, I guess, is Lowry. I mean, Lowry. I mean, he was aggressive from the beginning, but he's been missing the shots that he normally makes. I mean, those jumpers. Even. I mean, he normally can hit those threes, but like just nothing has been happening with Kyle Lowry. Like, what are your guys' thoughts? I mean, obviously, Sean, you mentioned about him possibly being injured, but I mean, I'm even surprised looking at the box score that he had 15 points. Just based on that game. When I look at the box score, I can't even think of where you get those points from. But yeah, what are you guys?
He started shooting well early as well, so that's probably
right. Yeah, he did.
And then he hit that three late and had a couple layups. He had a nice floater. That's one thing that I think he needs to add to his game, or that he doesn't go to very often. Like, I find when he takes it hard to the hole, he gets blocked a lot, or he's settling for three-pointers. If you can get that mid-range game going, it'll open things up, like on the dribble, passing potentially, things like that.
Yeah, I think that's a spot on. At one point in the fourth quarter, he was 3 of 19.
Yeah.
He ended the game 5 of 22. So, like you said, he had that late three and another shot to improve his percentage just slightly. But it's 2 straight games with just awful shooting, and from him. And yeah, that's the only thing I can think of is that he really is has these nagging injuries that are really affecting his lift and his ability to be able to make shots, and his throwing his form off. Because, man, the only thing that's frustrating with that, though, is that he's still shooting. Like, as a shooter, keep shooting, because it's kind of how you get out of it. But when you're shooting that low of a percentage, it's almost like you want to try and get other guys involved.
Yeah, you're the point guard. Yeah.
Right, that's right. And you're trying to distribute. But that said, even though, like you mentioned to start, Romy, that DeMar had such a good first quarter with those 20 points, he ended the game with only 32, as you also mentioned. He went cold. He was 11 of 29 from the field. Lou Williams was only 3 of 11. Jonas was like 4 of 10, and was Gravis like 1 of 5 or something like that. Like, it's just you can't have those kind of nights from everyone, and that's kind of what happened the last game too. Like, nobody could get it going.
Yeah,
but I mean, they were still in the game though. Like, they didn't lose by very much, but I can still go back to a lot of moments where the Matador defense was there, and they were getting into the lane like uncontested. There's one on a fast break where Ross couldn't decide whether to get out of the way or take the charge, but he forgot there's also the option of a hard foul. Did you see that one where he went like this? And then ball went into him, and he got called for the block because he was
wrap him up
way or something. But if he would have stood there, tried to take the charge, or give a hard foul to send the message, I guess it's just not in their DNA, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, there's been there was definitely a few times throughout the night where you just kind of question everything. I mean, even that time, was it Pierce?
And Jonas.
Well, I mean, Jonas, like we talked about the last podcast, just his expectations and how he performed. I mean, Gortat had a field day, 24 points and 13 boards, but I mean, he's been a problem. The bigs have been a problem for the Raptors, and just like Jonas has been struggling. Patterson and Hansbrough, I mean, they're on the defensive end, it's like Toronto's missing something. Like they needed.
Well,
go ahead.
Has anyone told Jonas that playoff basketball is more physical? It's just more physical. Like, there's every single time he gets the ball, he's yelling, trying to get a foul call every single time, and he's not going to get the call every single time. And then when you start looking at the ref,
get the call.
Yeah. Then when you start looking at the ref, expecting to get the call when the play's still going, and they're charging down the other end, and then like Gooden's getting wide open looks and everything, it's like
Drew Gooden, and again, as we mentioned in the past podcast this week, Otto Porter.
Yeah.
No, definitely. I mean, Drew Gooden, been definitely a key factor early on. He had 3 for 3 from 3. And Otto Porter, he definitely caused problems for DeMar. He was one of the big reasons why DeMar went cold in the second and third. And and then Paul Pierce. When we talk about the fourth quarter, he just hits those backbreaker 3-pointers when it matters. Just having a guy like him has such an impact in the playoffs for a young team like Washington. But yeah, so many X factors for Washington. Obviously, hats off to Washington. A young team. They're going to be good for years to come. But we expected more, man, from Toronto.
Well, that's what's frustrating, right? It's I feel like effort and intensity can be controlled, and physicality can be controlled, but they're just not doing it. It feels like they're playing like it's a regular season game.
Mm-hmm. Everything has to be taken up a level.
Especially watching all the other series, like the Bulls and Bucks, like they're getting in the fights on half the plays and go at it. And Jonas saying, you hit me.
Right.
But Jonas though, he's been like his whole NBA career. He's always the guy that's just throwing his hands up in the air after every call. He's gotta at some point just gonna have to not look at the referee each time, looking for the call. But just going into the season, obviously the expectations, is not just to get in the playoffs, but to get past the first round. But now you're on the verge of a possible sweep. And being Toronto Raptors fans, of all the fan bases, the Raptors fans are the ones that support this team
I
no
know.
matter what. Like, I mean, they'll sell out the ACC when they're like, you know what I mean, when they only have like 20 wins on the season or 15 wins on the season. And just to see, like, I mean, all that fan base let down for, I mean, such a disappointing start to the series.
Yeah. I think that hurts the most as a supporter, of the team, and for fans out there, is how much you've supported the team, all the downs, and we've had a couple good seasons back to back, regular season performances. Obviously, a disappointing exit in the playoffs last year, but I went, 7-game series, awesome series. We were expecting at least that this time around again, and it couldn't have been any more. It couldn't have been any more disappointing to this point.
Yeah, it's just
At
even
this point, it's still not over.
I know.
There's some signs.
It's not over. You're right. Like, keep faith alive. Of course, Sunday night. Let's see what happens. One game at a time. Win or go home at this point. But still, man, to be down 0-3, like. Even in the Golden State and Pelican series, right? I mean, obviously the Raptors game 1, it went to overtime, but the other 2 games, haven't been that close.
No.
Yeah, even the scoreline tonight, like, yeah, it was close on paper, but was it really? I mean, late, like, the Wizards were up 8. And even Jack was like, it's going to be a miracle to win this one. Like,
oh, man, those last few minutes of that game, and Devlin and Jack, it was just so depressing. They were already writing off those guys were already writing off the Raptors for the series and the season, and talking about what Kyle Lowry is going to have to question himself in terms of what happened this season. And I mean, obviously those questions are going to come up whenever the season wraps up. But just to even hear your home broadcast team just like already lost faith. And Drake left early too, I think.
Drake left early to go to Paul Pierce's after party or something.
Shout out to Paul Pierce, though, man. Like, having a guy like him on your team that hits those big
shots. No, that's what I was thinking too, for sure. Yeah.
And to have him just to hype up the crowd after the game. I mean, he brings emotions to his teammates. I mean, it's been a great addition for Washington. Like, I mean, even if he's not a factor, I mean, for 3/4 of the game, but to come in the fourth quarter, hit some clutch shots. I mean, shout-outs to them, because that's, I mean, having a veteran guy like that, I mean, even though he's I mean, at the tail end of his career, I mean, he still can make a huge impact. I mean, whether if he's in the locker room or on the floor. So, yeah.
Exactly.
You're thinking the next year too, but I mean, who knows, right? You can squeak one out and get it back to Toronto, and
whether this game goes 7 games,
sure.
whether this series goes 7 games or 4 games, and the Raptors still lose this first round, you think this is Coach Casey's last season?
I think so. If I had to guess, yes. Yes, because I just don't see enough variety from the team offensively. When they get mired down or they get in ruts, they don't seem to be able to have anything that can kind of break them out of that. And I know coaches always are the scapegoats, right? The players are the ones on the floor, but you got to have someone that can lead them and kind of help keep them on that path to success. And Coach Casey's done a fantastic job, and it's back-to-back seasons now, fantastic seasons. But it's got to go. The Raptors need to be able to have success in the postseason, and they haven't had that under Coach Casey. And I do think that this will probably be the last season for Coach Casey. My personal opinion.
Huey?
Yeah, I think you got to keep moving forward. I mean, this obviously feels like a step backwards as well, and it seems like he's trying to get a message through that isn't getting there. And even though they're succeeding and exceeding some people's expectations, I think when you have as good regular seasons as they've had, you got to expect more in the playoffs than what we've seen now.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think, I mean, I'm sure everybody thought, like, when Masai Ujiri came in as the new GM, you would have thought there was a possibility that he wanted to have his own coach anyhow, right? And we didn't know if Casey was even going to be here, but he gave him a chance. But the fact that he didn't get them under the, I'm not saying they're not, but I'm just saying if they don't get past the first round, I mean, their expectations at this point were to kind of move forward and kind of grow in the playoffs, but it doesn't look like it. It does look like a step backwards. So I can see Coach Casey probably fire right after the season if that's the case.
Jeff Van Gundy. I don't know. I just throwing it out there. Is he interested?
It took a lot for Jeff to leave his
I know
setup he's got with ESPN.
He loves making those little off-kilt remarks and, little tangent remarks every now and then. Yeah, it's going to take a lot for him to come back to coaching.
But you know what, though? The Raptors probably do need a coach like Jeff Van Gundy.
Yeah, with playoff experience.
Playoff experience, and he's kind of like a hard ass because, I mean, I watched, like, Open Gym, and I watched the post-game press conferences, and Dwayne Casey's a pretty nice guy, and he doesn't seem like a guy that gets too upset. I mean, whether it's in a press conference or I'm sure in the locker room, I don't think he's a kind of a guy that kind of is kind of a hard ass, and I think that's maybe that's what Toronto needs. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I started thinking, man, Raptors are Canadian nice, man. Even when they were like hard asses, like Terrence Ross, served the ball into the crowd, and DeMar, little shove. I don't like that. Little shove. That's it. Whereas, and then I flash back to the regular season where James Johnson dunked on what's his name again?
Andre Drummond, and then Drummond took exception to it and gave a hard foul back, and we're like, oh, that's dirty. No, that's basketball. When you get disrespected and dunked on like that, you don't back down. Mm-hmm.
And John Wall should be John Waltz. He's just waltzing to the hoop every single time.
So what you're saying is the Canadian culture is translating into Toronto Raptor basketball.
That's what it is. I want to see some We the North Philly style booing when we're not getting what we want.
I was reading on Twitter that there was USA chants at the game last night.
Oh, I believe it. There's been some memes I've seen on Twitter and stuff around that, and there's one picture of Paul Pierce smiling, and it said that feeling when you know that you're probably not going to have to take another trip through customs.
Yeah, I mean, that's man. And that's the thing, man, and it's just the whole Paul Pierce thing. It comes back to that where, I mean, he had that quote that the Raptors didn't have it, and then obviously Toronto's proving him right. Like,
yeah. Talk about self-fulfilling prophecy, like, you know what I mean? Like, I guess that doesn't quite work because they didn't say it themselves, but it's just the fact that it was put out there about them, and they're completely, unfortunately, living up to that at this point. And the two All-Stars last year with DeMar DeRozan and this year with Kyle Lowry, they haven't been able to get the team over the hump with a W yet this series, and we gotta have that. Six-man with Lou Williams, like so many positive things the past 2 years with this team, and it just hasn't come together as far as postseason success is concerned.
Yeah, and I'm thinking like in the off season too, just us as a fan base and maybe even them and Messiah are thinking, all right, they saw what it takes to get to the next round, but it doesn't seem like they did see what it took. Like they didn't up it
Yeah.
another level, you
Yeah.
know. And that's again like what they were saying on the broadcast, and what we were saying here about Paul Pierce, like that veteran leadership, like someone who's been there. Like we were expecting Lowry to be the anchor and to be able to rally the troops and get them to play hard all the time, but he's never had any real playoff success either. So you need somebody who's done it before who can lead you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's valid, very valid.
Yeah. How much do you?
Beer.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, I'm sure that's going to be something that Messiah looks for, and I'm sure looking for another big, like another reliable big. I mean, off season's going to be something else. How much do you attribute the playoff struggles to the second half struggle for the Raptors, that they never really got that momentum back?
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely translates for sure, because they didn't adjust their game. They didn't get back to what was working for them in the first half of the year. And a good friend of ours of the website, Brent Ritchie, fellow Raptors supporter and fan, he actually brought my attention to post practice interview with Patrick Patterson from the other day, and it was exactly, actually, it might have even been a pregame interview from earlier today, and it basically was Patrick Patterson talking about the fact that when things get tough, the Raptors don't believe in themselves anymore. Like, they don't believe in kind of what got them the success. Then they start to play that iso ball, and everyone wants to be the hero, as opposed to just sticking with what got you victories and success previously, sharing the basketball, working together on defense.
Sorry.
You gotta do that stuff.
No, that's totally what you're saying for sure, but I just had a Jeff Van Gundy tangent where who came up with the hero ball thing for campaign? Because that is like what, it's always mostly heard in a negative connotation,
Mhm.
where everyone starts hogging it and tries to be the hero. So where did that come from?
Yeah, I think it's a facetious thing, right?
After the
everyone's
Spurs.
trying to be the hero, and it doesn't work, and it's like, everyone wants the glory, right? It's like it's a glory ball is probably what it's probably more what it should be. Everyone wants to kind of be able to take that shot. Like, I like the fact that guys want that responsibility. They think that they are good enough to be able to have a positive success or impact on their team. But if that's not your strong suit, if you haven't been able to do that time in and time out, don't veer away from the plan. It just,
exactly.
we've seen that too many times this year in the regular season, where, it was supposed to be a particular play call, and then, according to a particular player, oh no, that wasn't what was called. It's like, did Coach Casey call for a play, or did he not? Right? Like, are you waving off your coach, or are you going rogue and doing your own thing out there? Like,
yeah, man. I think we've all kind of we've all been struggling with this loss tonight. I mean, I've been just following my Twitter feed, and there's a lot of dejected fans out there.
Yeah.
That have, I mean, that are pretty much that they've given up already on the season. So,
yeah.
I mean, we'll see how Sunday goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, can't give up yet. It's not over till it's over, right? I mean, there's no
Exactly.
doubt people have the right to feel, disappointed and like dejected, but it's not over till it's over. Washington hasn't won 4 games yet, and until they do, we'll, as the Raptors supporters, got to stand behind the team and keep rooting for them, and hopefully they'll do what they have to do to try and get a W. But I will not be surprised if, when the series is over, we find out, that Kyle Lowry was in a lot worse shape than what we expected. I mean, shooting this poorly is, it's shocking to me.
Yeah, you're not gonna win a series without kind of Lowry being the leader on this team and being an offensive threat. But I mean, when you have Lowry struggling, you've got Lou Williams struggling, and then the bench. I mean, it doesn't seem like the Raptors have X factors like Washington has been showing with all of a sudden Otto Porter and Drew Gooden being an impact. So I mean, we'll see what happens on Sunday at 6:30 Eastern is the game.
Yes,
I think so. Yeah, 6:30 Eastern. So I mean, you don't want to go out. I mean, you don't want to be swept. I mean, you got to go one game at a time and see if you can build it back to a 7-game series. Winning 4 games in a row is going to be tough, but I guess not impossible.
Yeah, in the fourth quarter, I want to say in the fourth quarter there was about 4 or 5 minutes in there where I felt like, okay, this is the way they need to play, but that was it. So there's a glimmer of hope. Like they did it for a tiny stretch, getting their hands in the passing lanes, closing hard on those doubles, edging hard, crashing the boards.
Staying in front of your man on defense.
Yeah.
Closing out.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but did you guys feel that too many of the Wizards' 3-point makes, well, even their 3-point attempts, but specifically the makes, because those are the ones that matter, right, mostly, was that they didn't seem to be defended that well? Like they just...
Yeah, going under screens.
Yeah, the Wizards seem to be way too open on too many of those perimeter shots.
Getting bumped off on off-ball screens and not, communicating to get the other guy to pick them up.
Yeah.
I think if you watch the highlights from the game, you'll see that most of them are Patrick Patterson kind of just like running and he's late on, he's trying to jump and he's late on the shot. I don't know. It's just unfortunate, but I think it was like Patrick Patterson that was kind of like the victim of a lot of those clutch ones. I mean, when it was Otto Porter and Paul Pierce. But that's the thing. I mean, we didn't see what Valanciunas didn't play in the fourth. It was Patterson, and I think he was a liability, but I mean he was in foul trouble as well, and they kind of let him play. But yeah, I mean, we're expecting a lot more from some of these guys, and but they haven't shown up at all this series. But yeah, so that's it. I mean, we'll talk again on Sunday. Hopefully, we'll be talking about being down 3-1 in the series and not wrapping up the Raptor series already on Sunday. But yeah, Sunday at 6:30 Eastern, we should have a podcast after that. Stay tuned to the blog, SafeHoopJunkies.com, HoopheadsNorth.com. Follow us on Twitter at Romy Kino, at Sean Francois, at Yui the Jock. We have